A lot of people in this room, I'm certain of it, and I don't want to pigeonhole anybody, but a lot of investors tend to be kind of conservative when it comes to economic policy. I'm talking about conservative in terms of politics, okay? And so as a result, lots of investors are very worried. Got tax hikes coming, government spending a lot, the government debt's up, Obamacare, and national health care, and cap and trade, and all these things. I mean, all you got to do is turn on Fox News and listen to Sean Hannity or Glenn Beck, and the world's coming to an end. Tomorrow, buy gold. I heard Sean Hannity, Glenn Beck sells it every half hour. Sean Hannity the other night, I heard him say, I sold all my stocks. I'm like, I hope the market was up 60% when you did it. Otherwise, you're just you are an idiot when it comes to investing. Because he's trying to time the market. And what I want to tell you is that I believe, in a sense, they're right about how policies of tax hikes and spending and big government hurt the market. But I want you to remember something. We haven't passed anything yet. Taxes are still down. They haven't gone up yet. Healthcare hasn't been passed yet. Cap and trade hasn't been passed yet. None of that stuff has been passed. So how can it hurt the market? In fact, we're proving it. The market's up 60% from the bottom. And if you're running scared just because somebody happens to be president, you're making a bad decision. Because when you look back at history, it doesn't really matter. And so the period of time that I want to remind you of right now is 1975 and 76. We had a terrible recession in 73 and 74. The stock market plummeted almost 60%. And then we had a boom in 75, 76. The economy grew 7% at an annual rate, real terms, after inflation. The stock market rallied 60%. That was 75, 76. Do you remember the 70s? If you're conservative, you got to remember the 70s. Because if you're a conservative, they were terrifying. It really started back in the 60s. So you start in the mid-60s, go through the 70s. You had Johnson, Nixon, Ford, and Carter. 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. All right? Medicare, Medicaid, welfare, food stamps. Do you know what we did in 1970? We took over Amtrak. Anybody here wake up last night in a cold sweat over Amtrak? I'm serious. I think Glenn Beck mentions it every day, General Motors. I don't hear him mention Amtrak. You don't even remember we took over Amtrak. By the way, we've owned Amtrak for 40 years. We've lost money every single year, and it's a monopoly. But you don't worry about Amtrak anymore. You forgot it. By the way, Amtrak had 18,000 employees when we took it over. It was 0.02% of the labor force. General Motors had 38,000 employees. There's 140 million workers. It's a little less than 0.03% of labor. They're about the same size. And yet we freak out about General Motors. You know why? It's today. And we forget Amtrak because that was long ago. All right. Also in the 70s, we had a 70% top marginal tax rate. 70%. Today it's 35. We had a 50% capital gains tax. Today it's 15. All right? Do you know who owned our bonds back in the 1970s? Anybody in here worried about China? Right? You know who owned our bonds? France. Now France, they knew something was up. We were printing lots of money. That makes our dollar fall. You own our bonds, you're going to lose money. So you know what France said? So it says here on these bonds, we can convert them to gold. So we want gold. That's what we want. We want you to take our bonds, we want gold from Fort Knox. You know what Richard Nixon said? Said, you're crazy. I'm closing the gold window. And then guess what he did? He devalued the dollar. Ripped them off. We're doing that to China right now. We're devaluing the dollar. We are ripping them off. They bought all our bonds, and then we're just devaluing the dollar. We did it in the 1970s. So everybody, gets worried about China. They're getting theirs right now. They know it. That's why there's all this talk. We got to get away from dollars. Because we're devaluing the dollar. We've been through all of this before. But right there in 75, 76, we boomed. All right? The economy boomed, and that's what we're doing right now. My belief is that we're going to boom for the next 12 to 18 months. 24 months probably, but you can't stop it. The Fed's been too easy for too long. It's like rolling out. The panic is over, the recession's done, and we're going to rock. And that's why, I was with this wizened old investor the other day, and he just looked at me and he goes, bull markets never do let you in. And he's absolutely right. We're up 60%, and there's some people with cash going, I just don't know. We're going to have a correction. I'll wait till the correction. Well, you're not going to get the sign like the burning bush that's going to tell you to get into the market. It's not going to come. And what we are, though, is we're in this 75, 76. And then the final thing, the absolutely final thing I promise that I want to leave you with is this. And that is that we don't even know where policies are going to go in the next couple of years. I want you to remember for just a second Bill Clinton. When he came in, he raised taxes, and he tried to nationalize the healthcare system. The stock market kind of stumbled around for a while, and then he lost in the midterm elections. Newt Gingrich came in, and the next thing you know, Bill Clinton is giving speeches saying the era of big government is over. And then he said, I think I'm going to reform welfare. How about a capital gains tax cut, Americans? By the way, he cut capital gains on housing, which was one of the things that started driving housing up too. And then, I think I'm a free trader. Me and Robert Rubin, we just love trade. If you really look at Bill Clinton's middle 4 or 5 years, he was the best Republican president we've had since Ronald Reagan. And so here's my question to you. Where do you think we're going to go over the next couple of years? Are we going to do a Bill Clinton? Here's what I imagine. I was watching TV the other day, and the Obamas landed in Paris. I'm pretty sure it was Paris. So the family is the president and his daughters and his wife. That's a beautiful family. Those kids are so cute. His wife's beautiful. He's tall and handsome. They're walking down these steps. And I started thinking about this. I'm like, just looking at this scene, the blue sky behind them. They are walking off the coolest airplane in the world. Absolutely. They did not pack a stitch of their own bags. Their cars flew in the day before. They don't cook a thing for themselves, they plant some vegetables, but that's the only. They don't open doors for themselves. The most important people in France were at the bottom of those stairs waiting for them. It's a really cool gig. So here's the family meeting. They're sitting around the dinner table, and the president says, kids, honey, we got a choice to make. I could be really ideological and jam through all this stuff that so many Americans seems to not like. My popularity's going down, but, we could just jam it through, and we'll probably have to leave after 4 years. Or I could get a little pragmatic, do a bill here or there, maybe hire Dick Morris back. And we could stay for 8. What do you think? That's the question. Because I'm telling you, we're going back to 12,000 on the Dow. Probably a little bit higher, but at least 12. That's pre-Lehman, all right? But if we get the family vote in the right direction, we're going back to 13, 14, or 15. And the question is, are you going to be on the board to take advantage of it? Because, see, when you go back to the 90s and the 80s, people didn't believe. And we had a monster rally. And I'm telling you, people today have a hard time believing. They think capitalism's failed, it's all over, nothing works anymore, the economy's going to heck, the politics are socialist, the list is endless. And yet here we are up 60% in the midst of all this mayhem and negativity. And I think we got a lot further to go. So I don't know if I helped convince you to move in that direction, but that's what I believe. In fact, I believe it so much I wrote a book, and that's the title. It's Not as Bad as You Think.